Hello, this is Jamie Mitchell, and we are back from another episode of Libertarian Uncensored podcast, going over all the posts on the Libertarian Uncensored subreddit. Let's get right into it. So first we have ammo vending machines. Capitalism is a beautiful thing from Caldog Curmudgeon, and that's a meme. American Rounds vending machine at the Super C grocery store in Noble, Oklahoma. Photo taken Saturday. And then there's Ron Swanson at the bottom. Damn it, I love this country so much. And I think, I think people should be able to sell whatever they want to. And I definitely think that this goes along with that. People have a right to a free market, and that's my thoughts on that issue. And then we have, with just one mention of abortion, the Republican Party lays out its 2024 policy platform from NPR.org, and I posted that, and I said, you definitely see the GMP compromising on some stuff that when you compare it to the 2016 platform, that 32 mentions of abortion said that traditional marriage and family based on marriage between one man and one woman is the foundation for a free society and has for millennia been entrusted with rearing children and instilling cultural values. And by contrast, this platform doesn't mention marriage at all. And that's why, as Michael Malice says, conservatism is progressivism driving the speed limit. Increasingly, they just have to compromise in exchange for electability, and that's why that they are. I would say they're not really conservative. They're more conservative That's the problem with conservatism. It conserves absolutely nothing. That's why I'm a libertarian, not conservative. Because conservative, they'll keep on moving the goalpost on what constitutes conservative, and soon you're not going to be able to question anything anymore if you're a conservative, because it's conserving what already is. And with the U.S. increasingly becoming more and more authoritarian, regardless of the party in power, and the government growing regardless of the party in power, it just goes to show you that the Republican Party is pretty much just controlled opposition. Then we have Project 2025 from Ragnar OKXG, and that's a list of what Project 2025 is supposedly going to do. And it says stuff like end no fault divorce, complete ban abortions without exceptions, ban contraceptives, additional tax breaks for corporations, 1% higher taxes for the working class, yada yada yada. And I said, Republicans don't have the political capital to pull off almost any of this. Believe whatever you want to, though. Then we have just pack the court, they say, and that's me, and it's from Ragnar OKXG, and that's the Supreme. That's the guy with the D head, and he says the Supreme Court is making terrible rulings on power to stop them, and the other guy says, why don't you just pack the court to stop these types of rulings? And the guy with the Democrat logo head says, I don't want to pack the court, I want to be powerless to stop them. And I said, r/Democrats Uncensored, dusting off old FDR era arguments. It's just like why they're for getting rid of the Electoral College. It's not because they want a popular vote. It's because they do want the leader to win the popular vote, but it's not because they support that for partisan reasons. They do support for partisan reasons. I'm getting at, because if they were the ones who were winning the Electoral College and losing the popular vote, they wouldn't be for it. It's just they just support authoritarianism when it benefits them, just like the Republicans do, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have, how can this happen? DeSantis explicitly outlawed talking about reality, and that's a crossword from CH4L Locks, and that's from a crossword from the Political Humor subreddit. Did anyone notice DeSantis strike climate change from state law and insurance companies leaving Florida? And that's a cartoon of Florida climate chaos, and the insurance companies say, oh, we're out of here. And that's my thoughts on that are, ultimately, if insurance companies don't want to work in a certain state, I don't think they should be forced to do so. And I do think, if they don't think climate change is too dangerous, I think they should be, and want to leave Florida, I think they should be able to do so. That being said, I personally think, climate change, I think it's kind of overblown and just another thing for the media to fearmonger about. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have the bad policy both Trump and Biden like tariffs from John Stossel on YouTube, and I posted that and I said, screw tariffs, they go against free trade. Then we have Let's Rehash Project 2025 again, this time dramatized from Padam 13. That's a video on YouTube from the Lincoln Project titled Aftermath, and I said, they're overplaying their hand when it comes to Project 2025 as a method of fear-mongering. Eventually people will catch on, they'll have to come up with something else. And that's my thoughts on that issue. And then we have, here's a great example from Michael Malice on Twitter, and I posted that. and that was him to quote to himself, MCs of all persuasions live in a perpetual presence, passing links insofar as men on their screens remind them of it. And then he shared an image, educational purposes, tweeted, LO, do you think CZ was like, if you're a Black Lives Matter protester, you can ignore our guidelines? And then CNN Health had a headline for 2020, or over 1,000 health professionals signed a letter saying, don't shut down protests using coronavirus concerns as an excuse. And I said in response, protests outside were bad when they were for the out group, but suddenly became essential when they were for the in group. Really makes you think. People will just go with whatever the narrative is. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have, will AI politicians replace real politicians from Mr. Beat on YouTube? And I posted that. And that was him going over in the UK election. A guy ran under the name AI Steve, and he said he would let his AI do the work for him when it came to politics. And I said, I think the first non-human POTUS might be the next big thing after the first woman POTUS. And I definitely do think, we might have an AI president by the end of the century, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Personally, I don't really care for any leader, but I definitely do think, an AI, that might be particularly bad, because what if it goes Skynet and tries to take us all out? And that's my thoughts on that issue. And we have Gotta Be Sure, from Defiant L's on Twitter, and I posted that, and that was him sharing a headline, man caught spiking his female jade strings with Viagra to make sure they don't get boners because you never know anymore these days. And I said, modern problems require modern solutions. I personally don't think anyone should be given drugs without their consent, though. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have right to repair legislation by Ragnar OKXP, and they said, the debate on the right to repair is gaining momentum, with many advocating for legislation that empowers consumers to choose who repairs their property. The movement argues for the freedom to select independent repair services over manufacturer-only options, which could lead to more competitive pricing and convenience for consumers. What are everyone's faults? And I said, I do think non-manufacturers should be able to repair stuff that they didn't manufacture. Once you sell something, it is no longer yours. But I still think calling it a right to repair is definitely kind of a misnomer, because no one has a right to get their things repaired. That's, I think, that for me, the connotation is is entitlement to the labor of others, and that's something that no one is entitled to. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have paying for Israel's bombs is the American way from Cowdog Curmudgeon, and that's a meme. People saying Biden's memory's going, but I don't know. He's never missed a payment to Israel. Gianmarco Ceresi. And I would agree with that. Ultimately, I don't think he's the one making the direct payment to Israel. He's literally letting the deep state run the country. But regardless, I think the deep state's running the country, and they're going to throw all our money to Israel, Ukraine, and whatever the current narrative is. That's what I think. It doesn't really matter who's in charge. Israel's going to win regardless. And we have man defrauds Amazon to fix potholes their dodge taxes should pay for. Use the same tax loophole as them to avoid legal repercussions for the fraud, by Frosty Slumman. That's crosswords from the Damn That's Interesting subreddit. And yeah, I definitely do think that is good. It's good to stand up to corporate authoritarianism like that. And I'm glad that he can cheat. This man could cheat the system just like Amazon could. Then we have something wings of the same bird, something duopoly from Cowdog Curmudgeon. That's a meme. Major political parties have no incentive to fix anything, for if there were nothing left to fix, there would be no longer a reason for you to vote for them. They only need to do just enough to keep you from being started from voting. Yeah, I would agree with that. Ultimately, I think, the big thing they want is they want to blame, they want you to vote against the other party more than they want you to vote for themselves. And that's just going to keep the system going forever. And that's my thoughts on that issue. And we have the president ordered a board to probe a massive Russian cyber attack it never did from ArsTechnica.com by Ninja Lover. And they added a full public accounting of what happened in the SolarWinds case would have been devastating to Microsoft. ProPublica recently revealed that Microsoft had long known what, but refused to address a flaw using in the hack. The tech company's failure to act reflected a corporate culture that prioritized profit over security and left the U.S. government vulnerable, a whistleblower said. And that just goes to show you that, ultimately, anyone can order whatever they want to, but, sometimes people might not act on it, and that's why actions matter rather than just orders. If people, you can order anything, but what matters is if people act on it, and that's my thoughts on that issue. And we have, some will say now that I'm calling America a Christian nation, and so I am, declared Senator Josh Hawley, and some will say that I'm advocating Christian nationalism, and so I do. And that's a tweet from Right Wing Watch, posted by CH4LOX, crosswords from the Atheism subreddit, And I didn't comment on that one, but yeah, I definitely do think we need the separation of church and state. But increasingly, for a lot of people, both on the right and left, the state has become the church. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that the country has to deal with right now. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have, I thought E. Musk was going to get rid of the bots. Sounds like a bloated, inefficient government succeeded for a lean, efficient private enterprise failed from CSSOnline.com, and that's from American MWAF, and that's across from the technology subreddit. FBI disrupts 1,000 Russian bots spreading disinformation on X. And I said, they probably had almost no following and the FBI just needs to blame Russia for something. Look into Hamilton 68, there was supposedly Russian bots as well, where the Twitter files exposed it. And I linked to a recent article on Hamilton 68 getting exposed as they weren't Russian bots, they were just actual accounts, but they said, oh no, they're Russian bots, Ultimately, you can blame whatever you want to on Russian bots, but I think, that's just an excuse to just say, oh, it's not my fault that my side's not winning. It's all the propaganda out there. Take responsibility rather than just say, oh, it's Russian bots. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Ocasio-Cortez seeks U.S. House impeachment of Supreme Court's Thomas Alito, original title from Reuters.com by Dr. Who 07. And I didn't comment on that one, but yeah, I definitely do think, that does look very overly authoritarian, I think, to a lot of people. And, I personally don't care for Thomas or Alito, but I definitely do think, the Dems would be up in arms if they voted, if they were voting to him, if the Republicans, same thing when it came to Sotomayor, Kagan, or Jackson. And that's my thought on that issue. Then we have Arkansas election officials reject petition submitted for an abortion rights ballot measure, original title from KOB.com by Dr. 07, and they added, "Will the people, what's that?" And I said, great reminder why votes less signatures are ultimately worthless. They aren't backed by force, unlike the state. And that's my thought on that issue. Then we have suspect in custody after crossbow murders of BN's BBC commentator's wife, daughters, from, posted by Truth for Sound. That's YouTube video from, I'm waiting for it to load here. CBS News, and I said, and they added, this is a violence problem and not a crossbow problem, and that they added that, and I said in response, no one beats the UK when it comes to weapons safetyism as well, and I shared a tweet that the Regents Park Police made on March 16, 2018. These items were found during a weapon sweep near Mackworth House, Augustus Street, during Op Spectre safely disposed and take off streets. And it's like a screwdriver, 2 screwdrivers, some kind of knife, some pliers, and some scissors. And then Maddie Clark replied that the USA has quadrupled the homicide rate per capita that the UK has. Obviously, no measures to stop every homicide ever. And I said, you're pretty much saying, I would rather have peaceful slavery than dangerous freedom. That's what I think a problem with a lot of people these days. They prefer peaceful slavery to dangerous freedom. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Clarence Thomas gifted Luke's trip to Pluton's hometown from thedailybeast.com by CH for Locks. And I said, that's across from the Russia Lago subreddit, by the way, and I said, someone should really redirect BlueAnon.com to this website, He went to Putin's hometown 2003, over 20 years ago. The fact that this has 36 posts, now it's 49 posts in every subreddit, and over 35,000 upvotes on r/politics, enough to be at the top of Reddit, proves my point. And then next we have Something is Wrong, Deeply Wrong Supreme Court for Trump immunity case from Akilamar.com by Far and Chimney, and that's a link to a story from the Atlantic, Something is Gone Deeply Wrong Supreme Court. And I think, that's, as I said in a previous episode, they only really care about the Supreme Court because that's one of the branches that the Dems don't control currently. And that's why, if it was the 6 free Dems instead of 6 free Republicans in the Supreme Court, you wouldn't see any articles like this from the Atlantic, I think. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have The Truth About Trump. He's a moderate from Spiked, and I posted that. And I said, I disagree with this article. Trump isn't a moderate, he's a leftist. The Republican Party and the Communist Party increasingly share more than just a color when it comes to economics. You just see how far left everyone's gotten when you look at the ballot this year. Joe Biden, Democrat. Donald Trump, former Democrat. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., former Democrat. Chase Oliver, former Democrat. Joe Stein, former Democrat. Cornel West, former Democrat. Coincidentally, I say this as a former Democrat as well. And I also added, economically, I think Trump and Bernie would agree on a lot, despite what the MSM would have you believe. Socially, Trump isn't as much of a leftist, but that's because the woke have pushed the overage window so far left to begin with. And that's my faults there. Then we have high inflation, no longer the only risk for U.S. economy. Fed Chair Jerome Powell says from Axios.com by Ninja Lover. And I didn't comment on that one, but yeah, I definitely do think, Jerome Powell is one of the talks, since he's the one who pushed through all the money printing in the first place that led to high inflation. Then we have Senators strike bipartisan deal for ban stock trading by members of Congress from CNBC.com by Zach Ness, and I do think that's good. And then we have a woman in Springfield is killed by the police. Here's all the facts I was able to get about the case. Please spread the word. Then that's from Ronald, and a link to the YouTube video from Ron the Anarchist. And yeah, it just goes to show you that the police can kill anyone in a second, and there's ultimately nothing a lot of people can do about it. But hopefully people will call them out like this Ron fellow's doing here. And then we have Why Hidden Behind the Screen for Fight for My Rights, You Hid Behind Religions, Jack the Rights of Others from DailyDoc.com by CH for Locks. And that's a story. Read the Fury Sex. The Heritage Foundation sent Fury Hacking Collective siege Sec after breach. And that's just another kind of story of how, the Republican Party is bad. But, yeah, I mean, the Republican Party is bad, but, I would say the Democratic Party is the one who's really controlling the narrative, and not groups like the Heritage Foundation and the other Republican think tanks. Just look at the ballot, as I said earlier. It's the top 6 or so candidates are all current or former Democrats. Well, Joe Biden's the current Democrat, but all the other ones are former Democrats, and that just goes to show you which party really controls the narrative, I would say, especially when it comes to sites like Reddit and all that. And I think we're going to wrap it up there. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.